Cool, and we are live. First, I'd like to thank you all again for sticking around for this. If you're just joining us, thanks for joining. It's been a blast. I love everything that's happened so far. And again, thank you to all the speakers and participants of WordSesh. So I'm always excited to be on these types of talks, these roundtables or discussions, and kind of moderating. I think it's a really cool format to switch things up. And this was an interesting topic that Petya had proposed, and we talked about a little bit. What we could talk about on a discussion like this, and also pulled in Paolo, which is really cool to have you here. So the topics are around WordCamp Europe, and it's a sad topic for me because I missed it, and I've been missing a lot of WordCamps that I want to go to. But that's what happens when you choose to move to another country and have kids, and get a dog and all these things that tie you down to not going anywhere. So
you do realize 80% of people travel to WordCamp Europe, though, right? That's not an excuse.
All right, so I can't use that excuse, I guess. But exciting for me. I think again, I think a lot of amazing things are happening in Europe. For me to move from the States 6 years ago and to come here and see it grow. As an American coming here, and it's amazing. It really is. I think it's something very special, and you guys know that. And I think that it would be good to catch up, do kind of a recap, ask you guys some questions, get some questions from the people who are watching. What worked, what didn't work, what are you guys changing? What's the plan? A bunch of stuff. So we can dig right in. But I'd first like for you guys to just give an opportunity to tell everyone who you are and what you're doing and say hi.
Sure. Who's starting?
Petya, you can start.
All right. So hi everyone. I am Petya, and I am a WordCamp Europe organizer, and I'm also a WordPress polyglot, and I'm working for Human Made as a project manager and an event organizer. I started with WordPress around 2010. Started running a blog like everyone else, and in 2013 during WordCamp Europe, the first one in Leiden, I got really hooked, and I started contributing more, and that led me to organizing WordCamp Europe the next year, 2014, and I've been involved with the camp ever since until this year.
Cool. And Paolo.
And hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Paolo Belcastro. I live in Vienna, Austria, even though I'm Italian originally. I work for Automatic, and I've been involved with WordCamp Europe since Leiden, since the first edition, where I was kind of asked to give a hand with volunteers, and then I loved that so much that I stayed. And I think WordCamps have given me what I love in these WordCamps is that I've been working with WordPress or around WordPress for a number of years, even before Automatic, and I was kind of find my way to give something back to the community. And I don't think that anybody wants me to contribute code to WordPress. That was out of the way. And I found that gathering people is something I really enjoy doing, and so that has become since then my way of doing, of giving something back to the community. So WordCamp Europe, Leiden, Sofia, and Sevilla, and Vienna, and next year, Paris.
Awesome. All right, so let's just dig into, first I have a bunch of questions, so I'm just going to go for it. And hopefully we can get some discussion going. I think it's cool that, again, we haven't talked much about this. I didn't go to WordCamp Europe. I'm just asking some questions in the polls to see actually how many people here have been to not only a WordCamp in Europe or a WordCamp Europe in the past or 2016 or are attending in Paris next year. So if you guys want to take a look at the poll and answer those, that would be awesome. I think it's cool to then maybe just get a feel for who's here and who's not. So first couple of questions. I guess, again, this is coming from me as, a huge majority of the WordCamps that I've been to were actually at my time when I worked in the States with Brad. And this is back in, maybe 2008, 2009, 2010, traveling all over the States before there was probably, WordCamp Europe or many WordCamps in Europe at the time, like it is today. So my curiosity is like, from the beginning, Paolo, I guess, if you go all the way back to the first WordCamp Europe, is like, what were your expectations, I guess, before it happened? And what did you feel after, I guess, the event, in terms of what you thought, what would happen in this complete kind of unknown, not in the States, right, in Europe, where you have stuff like different languages, different cultures, which are vastly different than having, say, a WordCamp in San Francisco, where everyone from all the states are going to.
So to be completely honest, I don't think that I had a lot of expectation before it happened, because I was invited on board once the idea had sparkled. I wasn't in the very first group of people who sort of decided to try to go with that. So when I joined, I was mostly looking to help a group of friends do something that required a lot of work, and they wanted help. So that was my highest expectation, was let's just help them make it a success. I did realize, though, along the way, that we really didn't know if it was going to catch up. Like, it seemed, as you were saying, this whole thing that Europe is very different from the United States, with the different language, different culture, different habits. And so it was a little bit scary. And the moment we got to Leiden a few days before the WordCamps, really, we didn't know even whether people would show up. Like every WordCamp Europe is fairly cheap. And so buying a ticket is not that huge commitment. So we were really wondering, okay, is that really going to work? And I think that the morning of the first day, when we opened the door and we saw the people flowing, and all these different people, and some of them we never met before, and some of them used to go from one WordCamp to another, then we realized, okay, we're probably touching something important here. Something is happening. And over these first 2 days, we realized that without really understanding it during the process, it was really feeling a need that the European community had. The European community, exactly because Europe is so different from the US, was a lot more made of sort of closed groups.
Right.
In the US, it's very easy to go from New York to Miami to Chicago. In Europe, the Italian community, the German community, the British community, these communities didn't talk to each other that much. And suddenly everybody had this feeling of being part of something so much bigger that was way beyond their city, their local meetup, their local group. And yes, I think that's what happened in Leiden the first year.
Awesome. Petya, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I don't know how the atmosphere came to be at WordCamp Europe, but I volunteered there, and what Paolo is saying about like opening the doors, I was at registration when the first people started coming in, and it was like I was just watching.
It was amazing.
Everything developed with like eyes like that.
Well.
I just thought I want to be a part of this. I want to somehow be a part of this more. I want to do this. I don't want this to stop.
And I think it kind of goes back to what you said, Paolo. I'm just kind of guessing here, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I like that there was no expectations, that this was something new, that, this was opening the doors and letting this, like, almost letting, like the idea of just letting it happen in a way. Like, we knew how WordCamps work, or you guys knew how WordCamps work from what's happening in the States, for example, or maybe in the UK, for example, but, an entire, place like Europe and all the countries and all the cultures is like, you didn't put it in the box in a way that it has to be exactly the same way that it is in the States, right? So it was very special because it kind of became itself. You knew right away, what it was going to be, and that's what was really exciting. I think is you can try to replicate what you think is working, say in the States, like a WordCamp San Francisco, and this is how they did it. Not to say that they're not like they are similar in a way. But there are things that you need to do, and you guys probably have learned, or you had these ideas that, this is how we have to do it for WordCamp Europe. So it's been very interesting for me. Again, I haven't been to, I didn't go to WordCamp Europe this year, but I have been to all the ones in the past. And it's special. It really is. And I think for me, it's amazing to see these, just something about the different cultures, the different languages just come together for for something like WordPress like that. And you guys are pulling in insane numbers. Like, it's massive. I wish that I went this year, but just looking at, there's a really good blog post that you guys did around the big recap for WordCamp Europe 2016. And some of these things are amazing, right? So regular tickets sold 2,032, and out of that, 1,952 people attended. That's something that's, I don't even know what's the next is WordCamp US. How many numbers did they have?
I think they're going for 3,000.
Yeah.
Yes, which is great.
Yeah, that's great. That's very good. But again, too, so these numbers are massive, and these are just growing in the past, year, 2 years. So I think that's something to be really proud of. I have a question, like how big are these going to get? Like how big can they scale?
You go, Paolo. I'm not going to answer.
I mean, 800 was a big number. I remember, like around maybe San Francisco.
Yeah, so we had this debate. We had this debate a few times because, especially last year, we were confronted to something very special, which is that we had seen growth between Leiden, Sofia, and Sevilla, and we planned Vienna with the same growth rate.
Right.
And we sold out within, I think, less than 10 days. And so we started looking for a solution to grow bigger. And then we realized that we could, but of course, it's been a lot of extra work to change the size of the event. Basically, we're planning for 1,200 and we went up to 2,000. So we had conversation about how do we avoid this in the future. And so naturally the question comes about, okay, what's the ideal size? Like, what is the target? So the one thing we clearly know is not on the table is that it's not a competition to be the largest just for the sake of being the largest.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way I personally see it, and I can only really commit myself on that because I think that every single person in the team has a slightly different point of view, is that my ideal size, my ideal number of tickets is the number of tickets that leaves us with one unsold ticket on the day we open the event. Because my most important goal is to satisfy everyone who wants to come.
Mm.
Now, this is not this is just my point of view. It's not a truth. It's not something that has to be shared by everyone. And at the end of the day, it's also a bit of a ideal situation. We perfectly know that venues have sizes, and we need to book venues a long time in advance. So there's a we have to play with the constraint of real world.
Right.
Not if we book a stadium.
Yeah, but we don't want empty venues either. So it's a fine balance. So what we know is that Paris, of course, the venue is booked in Paris. Everybody knows that already. The venue will allow us anywhere between roughly 3,000 and 4,000 people. So we are probably starting with 3,000.
Right.
The idea of saying this is the ideal size of Paris, which would represent 50% more than Vienna. We know, and we just keep this little margin in case even more people decide to come. So yeah, it's is it destined to grow forever? I honestly don't know. But the one thing I know is that WordCamp Europe and WordCamp US are kind of special events, and there's 100 and more WordCamps along the year of all sizes, and so there's a place for every size. There's a place for the 80 people WordCamp. There's a place for the 20,000 people WordCamp, if 20,000 people want to go.
Cool. No, it's interesting. We could actually. I have just some questions around. Even I know that this is out there, documented on a website, or how to apply for, say, WordCamp Europe. So, can you walk us through a little bit about the kind of applicant city process, if you will? What's an appealing place? How does that work? How do you guys choose, say, Paris next year, or what's a difficult place, right? So I'm just thinking about like if it was say Norway, like the currencies involved, like Norway's a crazy expensive place, so like probably Norway's never an option, just because it doesn't fit for the community, right? Like everyone would be paying a lot of money for something that they could, potentially all the Norwegians could fly somewhere else. So how does that work? Like what complications are there? What's working? What's not working? Yeah.
I wouldn't say never. It always depends on who you're up against, right? Yeah. I mean, you can be up against like, I don't know, Denmark and Sweden, and then it's going to be pretty much, that's going to get cut out of the equation. But no, so the process is really hard every year. I think in the beginning there was some, back and forth around how the city should be chosen. But the application process these days just opens a lot earlier than even like the next event is going to happen. So for example, for 2018, it's going to open probably late September, because with the WordCamps getting, like the event getting bigger, it's a lot harder to book a venue that can actually accommodate everyone, right? And these venues, you find as you go along that it's so easy to find a venue up to 1,000 people, up to 1,500 people, but then it's very, very easy to find a venue for 30,000 people. But everything in between that can actually fit the purposes of the event is a lot more complicated to find. And a lot of the people that have done amazing jobs at applying to host WordCamp Europe in the last 2 years know how hard it is to get a venue that is appealing, close to the center, easy to get to, and also like a really good conference venue as well. So we don't have to put in a lot of effort into like building everything from the ground up for the event. At the size, we already need a venue that has its own like team that runs events, so that we don't have to really worry about audio, video, the technical stuff. That's super important. But there are a lot of things that we also look at, and it starts with a really strong local team. This is, I would say, our first and the thing that we first look at. You have to have organized at least one WordCamp, and it had to have gone well. And you have to have people on the ground that are understanding the commitment of organizing WordCamp Europe as a local team, because that means, again, at this size, a huge time investment and a lot of effort into the local team. Does everything on the ground, everything that's related to the venue, catering, all of the things that are requiring, for example, depending on where it is, just the communication in the local language, communication with the local vendors, and all that. It's really huge commitment. So a strong local team is the first thing that we look at.
And just on that note too, I know this talk should be more about 2016, but I think it's good to get a good background on some of this stuff. Then we can dig into some stuff with 2016. Just a question on your point there. So I know, Petya, we had talked about before. So WordCamp US, the style that they're doing is, the same city 2 years in a row. And I'm guessing that's a lot of stuff to do with the local team. And that doesn't involve, I think you guys are doing a crazy amount of work doing a different place every year with different languages and different currencies and different, it's way more. So is that something you guys want to continue to do? Is that working? Is it a lot of work to get, a whole new local team and a whole new local language? You're doing a great job. But obviously I think that, I'm not sure, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that probably helps the US, for example, for saying doing the same place 2 years in a row. They know things work, they know the routines, they fix what was wrong, and then they do it again. And then they switch, right? Because you need to have it in another place. So just your
I think our, Paolo and mine opinions on this are different.
Good question then.
That's
a great question. I'm doing a good job.
We played with ideas. I don't think we disagree fundamentally on that one. I think that, especially 2015, 2016 showed us that being able to do 2 years in a row in the same place requires more than just saying, oh, let's do the same city. WordCamp US, for example, was last year in a venue that can totally accommodate their growth.
Right.
But that's not the case of every venue. Right. So if we were to say that we decided to do the same thing and we said, okay, let's do Vienna again in 2017, where we would have to change venue. We couldn't fit more people in the one we had last year. So what we do is that we change venue each year, we change city each year, but we have a sort of organic transition from the local team to the global team. So but maybe I should explain a little bit how the team is organized, because that sort of makes up for it. There's a global team that is made of people all across Europe that sort of handles all the tasks that don't require local presence. So, you know, the sponsors, the design, the speakers, the volunteer team, all these things that you can do from far away. And then there's a local team, which is the team who actually applied for that city, who will handle all the local logistics, from the venue to the catering, to the hotel, to the transportation, the pre-warm-up events, and all these things. And what happens every year is that, of course, a few people from the local team at the end of the event say, guys, it was amazing, I loved it, but I'm exhausted, I need a break. And some people from the local team say, hey, I really love this, can I stay next year? And so we sort of transition. We have done that every year. A few people take a break and can come back later. Like we have people in the 2017 team, like Siobhan, who took a break last year, and now she's back. We have Petya taking not really a break, because she is going to have things to do, but a sort of break in 2017. But we have people from the local team who said, hey, I want to stay on. And so the knowledge is sort of kept, because, as an example, people who were in charge of catering in Vienna in the local team have decided to stick around in the global team for Paris, and so what they learned can be transferred to the new local team, and so on. So we do change locations, yeah, but not losing completely all the knowledge that we accumulated. And again, it's only some venues that, and maybe that's more common in the US, where there's a lot more space and venues are generally bigger. It's easy to find venues that are in the center of a city and can accommodate any number of people. In Europe, it's kind of harder. Like generally, this year you probably cannot afford the venue for next year, because you have to fill up the venue you take to be able to pay for everything. There's like a balance. So I as Petya suggested, I was originally saying, hey, why don't we do the same thing? That would be a lot less work. But at the end of the day, I think it doesn't apply to Europe the same. I think it's great that they do that in the US, but it's a different setup.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, I like it. I like that you guys, you've come to a decision on this on your own, and it's working.
There's like, I love how practical Paolo is. This is like one of the most amazing things about him. Because I go all mushy and emotional and everything, but I'm gonna just throw this in. There's another reason why we move camp every year. Think about how many cities in Europe organize WordCamps, and how many people are putting their best effort forward to make it for the globe, for like their local communities. And a lot of these cities want to host WordCamp Europe. It's such an amazing boost for a local community. Yeah. And on the attendee side, people just love a new adventure every year. It's turning into a family event. People come for a week, bring their families along, like make it like a small kind of holiday or anything around the WordPress event that they're doing. They're getting their families involved. My family, like my whole family, was at WordCamp Europe this year. My parents were there. My sister volunteered for a second year in a row. For
we
us,
have childcare, Scott.
We've got.
What am I doing? What am I doing?
We got childcare. We have we're trying to make it this one of the questions that we're trying to ask more and more. How do we make WordCamp Europe's format fit your kind of needs, so you can bring your family along?
That's great.
It's one of the reasons, again, why moving it each year turns it into an adventure, and also gives a new local community a chance to host. And that's like, it's so enlightening.
Cool. Let's switch it up a little bit. Let's talk about WordCamp Europe 2016 specifically. I'd like to get an answer from kind of a short summary from both of you guys. Petya, we can start with you again. If you can give just a very quick kind of just summary of why you love this year's WordCamp Europe, and I can ask some more maybe pain point questions or other questions. But just from 2016, this WordCamp specifically, what did you like best about it?
I love the location. I think the venue gave us such a great kind of themed WordCamp a little bit, and we managed to like turn it into a great experience for everyone, not just because of the talks and the networking and everything, but like also because of the ball and because of all the kind of glamour. That's what made it like different than the years before. Seville was in this fun southern city, with all the, salsa dancing and whatever. Vienna was all about, the beauty of the museum's quartier, and like it kind of turned into a very kind of classic event, I'd say. I mean, Scott, you totally missed on like developers wearing tuxedos during the ball.
I saw some
and
pictures.
Like,
it was great.
Jesus, that was like, my eyes were like this all evening. They said at the beginning, who are these people? Like I'm entering and he's like, who are these people? I've never seen these people before. So, yeah, it's the same people you see every year. It was really
a good challenge.
Yeah, it was a great challenge. Yeah. And I think with like we made it work. I mean, Helen's opening of day 2, oh my God. The grand piano on stage and all this, like we picked up these tiny opportunities that the location provided and turned them into like experience. We tried to turn them into an experience for attendees, and I hope it worked because it only worked for me.
What about you, Paolo?
Well, I'm a bit biased, of course, because I think that one of the most important takeaways for me was to welcome all these people in what I call now my home. I've been living here for 4 years, so it was really, really a privilege to get everybody to the city and try to, as Petya said, try to make the maximum out of the location and the city and make them discover. For some discover and for some others come back to Vienna. And yeah, it's I have to say it worked because it's an easy city to go around. It's relaxed, it's safe, it's practical, transportation, restaurant, everything was just nearby. It was a bit on the warm side for a few days, but I think it's better than the opposite.
Warmer than Spain, Sevilla.
It wasn't really warmer than Sevilla, but Sevilla is kind of equipped for that.
Right.
Vienna is not really. So yeah, it was. You really felt that you were among a lot of humans, which is great.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think that. But this was a very different experience for me. I think the one that Petya had in Sofia in 2014, which is. You see all these people coming to your home instead of being also one of the ones who travel. It's a very special thing because then you can share a lot of things. You can bring them around. You can show them around. It's really. I'm kind of very happy that Paris has been selected next year for that because I lived for almost 12 years there. Nice. So I'm not local anymore, but it's still a little bit home.
Right.
So I'm sort of doing it again with Paris.
Cool. All right. So to flip that question around, I think it's good to talk about some not when it's called negative feedback, but stuff that you guys did say necessarily wrong or didn't work, and what are you guys learning from? So if you guys could just talk about maybe what did you learn this year, or what's happened this year specifically in WordCamp Europe 2016 that is a learning experience for you guys, whether it's good or bad. And something that you will change, for future WordCamp Europes. Is there anything different, say this year that you learned that you didn't, in the past because of the size, because of the location, just some stuff that you guys, have learned and you guys will change for future WordCamps?
I think there's a ton of things we have learned and we will change because we really like to iterate, but there's one that really stands out in my view. And it was kind of a byproduct of growing, because as we wanted to give more room to people, we added a third track in a location that was in the same area, but just needed to walk a few minutes. And then we realized that our schedule was a bit tight, and we had a lot of talks and and very short time between them.
Yeah.
And we only realized once there that basically if you wanted to change room between two talks, you had to skip one. There was no way you could at the same time change rooms and get the beginning of the next one. And so we had quite a few conversations about that with the 2017 team, and we agreed on one thing, which is that we want a much more relaxed space. We want more time for people to move around. Also because it, beyond the just, practical ability of catching the beginning of the next presentation, which is great, it allows people to stick around at the end of a presentation and not leave during questions because they want to get to the next one. But most importantly, it gives a lot of more occasions of meeting each other and talking to each other, instead of crossing paths in the square and saying, "Oh, I'll see you later because I have to run to this presentation," having some time. So I think this is one of the biggest takeaways, is changing in pace and go a little slower, and knowing that, okay, we will fit a little less presentations in number, but at the end of the day, if we force you to skip one every two because you want to change room, it doesn't matter that we offer you more presentations. Right. You're going to miss them anyway. So,
cool. Just a quick question on venues. Again, this is me just guessing from experience. A lot of the WordCamps that I had gone to in the States, and even at just the smaller, non-WordCamp Europe or US or San Francisco at the time, they kind of are somewhat similar venues. From the WordCamp Europes I've been to, they're very unique places. Different shapes, sizes, 2 levels, 1 level. Very like the one this year looked actually pretty cool. A very steep incline, like stadium seating, I guess. And I don't know how many people that main room sat, but very different from, say, the one that was in, I guess Leyden maybe was similar to that, but the one that was in Sofia, which was like a huge place. I don't know how many floors and escalators and everything.
The mothership.
The mothership. It was the mothership. So yeah. So what did you like about? I guess we talked about breaks and stuff, but the venue this year specifically. What's 1 or 2 things that you liked about it or didn't like about it, and maybe that would change. I guess I don't know if you guys have obviously probably picked next year's venue and stuff, or you're going to go tour it. But what did you like about the venue this year? I guess specifically. Pictures look beautiful.
Maybe I can say, because I was a part of the selection process. Oh. The venue, and when Vienna was applying to host, they were up against Bratislava, which is, I don't know, something that you probably don't know, Scott. But the Bratislava venue that we absolutely loved was their National Theater. So in both cities with such rich history and amazing buildings in between, we were looking at really great places that also represented a cultural part of the city, not just had room for 2,000 people. Right. Unfortunately, the venue in the Museumsquartier is one of the most amazing concert halls, I'd say, in Europe and maybe in the world. I don't know. So it's a beautiful venue. It's an amazing setting. It gave us this kind of idea that we can theme the WordCamp around it, which is always great. And also being a professional concert venue, it also ensured that we'll have the technical team available that will be able to support the event. The National Theater in Bratislava didn't have available dates that could suit the event. So the venue, I would say, is one of the main reasons why we decided to, after all, go with Vienna, apart from obviously the local team experience. But we just love the venue. We love the pictures. We love the idea of having WordCamp Europe in a concert hall like that. In the same way as the docks in Paris are also a really great venue. It's very nice background, and I think it will make an amazing WordCamp Europe venue as well.
Awesome. Let's dig into, we still have some time here, but let's start digging into some of the questions from the audience. And we can take it from the top. These are, I believe, ordered by votes. So the first one here is, as a monoglot, how can I best support the polyglot community? This is from the other talk, because the topic is the title is wrong.
Yeah, but German's gonna be
my fault.
German's gonna be asleep.
We'll save that one
by the time. I've also answered it. Like, you should go deal with Pento, and translate WordPress to emoji, Aaron.
This happens when you moderate comments live. So, all right, here we go. What are the challenges of an international event experience exponential growth? I think we talked a little bit about this.
Yeah, it goes. It boils down to relearning everything. So taking the experience of the previous year, but realize that you cannot work with the same people, the same companies, and you have to move up. So, for example, one example is you are changing some conditions from country to country, and because you're changing the size, the solution may not be the same. Sevilla, for example, we decided that we wanted live translation in Spanish because we realized that part of the local population, they do speak English, of course, but they weren't comfortable listening for 2 days in a row to presentations in English. So we went for live interpreters with, this system of little radios that we were distributing to people. And now in Vienna, we decided that wasn't necessary, but instead we focused on accessibility by having closed captioning in English of the English presentations. And so next year, going back to Paris, we decided that Paris should have, like Sevilla, the translation, but we also felt that the size of the event was going to make the little radio distribution a logistical nightmare.
Right.
And at the same time, the closed captioning were really good because of they cover more needs than just translation. And so we decided that we want to go with closed captioning both in English and in French. So it's sort of, you take what worked and you try to adapt it to the local needs, and you try to adapt it to the local size. Mm. And so you can't just say, oh, I have this recipe that worked, and now I'm going to do it. It's exactly like cooking. You have that recipe that worked, except that you have to replace that ingredient, and now you're cooking for 20 people instead of 2. So right. the process is a bit different.
Yep. Cool. Next one from Barry. So as much as I love the setup with volunteers, when do you think it's time to start using more professionals? For example, security. When growing to huge numbers like 3,000 to 4,000, security becomes a real part of the event.
We did have professional security in Vienna. We made it so it was as invisible as possible, but we did have 2,000 people were already enough to warrant professional security. Just because it is true that volunteers are amazing, the work volunteers do. The team was, I think, 160 volunteers in Vienna. It's going to be 250 or 300 in Paris. And the work is really outstanding, but there's some things you cannot ask to volunteers. So if there was any problem involving security, you definitely don't want to have to ask to people who just came there to volunteer and help to handle it. So yeah, professional security, professional health care assistants, all these things have to be. The childcare were professionals too. There's a lot of things that have to be done by professionals.
We actually had professional security in Sofia and in Seville as well. I mean, it's been going for a while. It's just you don't really advertise that to people, and because the community is generally amazing and things don't happen. So when there are no accidents, people are not aware that there has been an effort put into preventing this sort of stuff happening.
No, it's a great answer, and I guess that kind of goes back to even to the last question. What are some challenges to this kind of growth? So it is that kind of stuff, and I can imagine even just childcare at that size being a huge thing to plan and plan it right. And
well,
so
with
hats off to you guys for
childcare,
doing that. I think
yeah,
that's amazing.
childcare is not that like the only thing you have to do is actually just check the interest beforehand. On how many people are actually willing to, if you're traveling with your kids, you're not going to decide that last minute anyway.
No.
So asking people 3 or 4 months in advance whether or not they plan to bringing their kids, and whether or not they're actually going to take advantage of childcare if that's provided, first helps people actually try and maybe decide on bringing their kids on if it's early enough. And then it helps you a lot in terms of finding the service, providing the service, and making sure that everything is good, that parents are calm, that they have enough information and all that. Because like it's not easy to leave your kid with a stranger in another country for a whole day. I can only imagine how that might feel. So childcare has another side as well, which is communicating with the parents, and that needs like special dedication as well.
Cool. Next one from Jenny. Are there any places you would like to see WordCamp Europe go to?
Oh, you can't ask that. I can be embarrassed.
There's many places.
Ask me.
The moon.
It's not in Europe. Come on. No, first of all, any places it hasn't gone yet. Like we really would love to keep having new applications every year. And what I'd like to underline, if people from these places are listening, is that every year until now, all the applications that were refused were actually extremely good. And they were just refused because we have to pick one. There's no way you can have more than one. So the places where it could have been in the previous year and it hasn't would be amazing as next places. And then, of course, because Jenny is asking, I think that the UK would be amazing too.
Yeah, having the WordCamp Europe at the Manchester Stadium. How about that?
Yeah. No, it's exciting. This is just the beginning, right? Just the beginning.
Hey, come on.
I'm happy I'm in Europe. I love it. It's amazing. I'm here.
Somebody said don't Brexit WordPress. Oh no. Hugs for all the UK people. Hugs.
Well, yeah. Next one. What is your definition of Europe for WordCamp Europe? From Aaron.
Paolo?
There's two definitions. There's the practical one is the geographical one, definitely not the political one. Europe was a continent way before being, the European community and all these things. So everything that is geographically Europe is Europe for WordCamp Europe. This is sort of if we were to select a city, for example, we would ask them to be in that area. As for attendees, I would say that anybody who likes Europe, anybody who wants to come to Europe, anybody can be European for a few days and enjoy WordCamp Europe, whether they come from America, Asia, Australia, Africa, or I don't know, another planet. It doesn't really matter. For that weekend, everybody's European wherever they come from.
In terms of selecting the host city, we do it with just cities that are geographically in Europe. In terms of attending, there's no real, we encourage everyone to come. Had people from 68 countries this year, where that was in Seville, there were 58 countries. So it's always been bigger than Europe in terms of attendees, speakers, and all that. It's a global event. It's somewhere you go to meet the global community, not just the European community. Aside from the European communities being able to connect with each other, I think we all love this fact. We loved how it's turned from, a global European community meeting into a global meeting.
Cool. We are somewhat short on time, but I have just a question that's popped up in my head, and I don't even know if it's a smart one to ask, but I'm going to ask it anyway, just because I'm just very curious. What do you guys see? I'm just thinking of the size of this event, and like, what if it happens? Say WordCamp, Europe came to Norway, right? And we have WordCamp here. We've had it for a long time, and what does that do to WordCamp Norway, for example, the year that it leaves? And I'm not saying this in a bad way; it's probably positive stuff. But what do you guys see happen after a WordCamp Europe, like Vienna or like the one in Bulgaria and Sofia? What happens the next year for that country's or that city's WordCamp Europe, in the sense of like, what is that like, for an organizer, for the local team? I know that everyone's, pretty proud of what they actually accomplished the year before, but for maybe not even just the organizing team and maybe not just the WordPress community, but like people who are going to WordCamp for the first time, they go to WordCamp, Europe, say Vienna, and then they come back the next year and it's a small one again. Maybe I'm talking like very local people, not the people that we kind of deal with every day that travel around. But what kind of feedback do you guys get, or do you see, or can you just think about now, if you've never thought about it? Like, what do you guys think about that?
I think maybe I can answer that because I've been in the situation. We organized WordCamp Sofia last year after hosting in 2014. The WordCamp grew exponentially. Like it had almost for like 300 something people that came. There were like 200 something people at the last WordCamp Sofia that we organized, and the event had 2 tracks, a lot more international speakers interested in coming to Sofia. Like kind of the European community was aware how strong the local community was already. So there were a lot more people who came from the outside. So the connections obviously matter in terms of networking with the broader community, not just on a local basis. I think hosting WordCamp Europe was an amazing thing for Sofia. We're now looking into maybe there are a couple of more meetups that can start in Bulgaria in different cities, and another WordCamp Sofia this year, which has a brand new team. So everything is it keeps going.
Yeah, and I guess my question is kind of stemming from the, from what I know and what, my involvement with WordCamps in the beginning and seeing them grow and, different rules and why we do them. I'm just curious. And again, I want you guys to just give me your honest opinion. Does having, say, a WordCamp in a place like, say it's a small place, it's like Sofia, which is not small, but like kind of huge WordCamp, is the next one, does it feel like do you have any pressure to make it a very big event? Or is the exact opposite? Like, does it bring stuff back down into, say, like the hyperlocal stuff and the meetups and stuff like that?
I had a very big pressure to make it an amazing event, not necessarily a huge one, not necessarily.
It's amazing doesn't mean how big it is and how expensive, how many people.
No, absolutely not. It's the common values for a WordCamp. You want to get a great lineup going on. You want to make a lot of opportunities for people, to create a lot of opportunities for people to meet. You want to throw social events that encourage people to get to know each other better, make better connections. You definitely want to not fail at basic things. That's one of that's the only pressure. You cannot fail at things that you've already done well at the previous event. But the size, no, that's not been a pressure for us at all.
And something we just start seeing, because of course WordCamp Europe in Vienna was just a month and a half ago, but is that there's people in the local meetup who have been participating for a while, but were not really, they didn't go to the organizing side yet, and now they feel like they can, because they have seen this, they've been excited by this event, they've seen all these things happening. And I mean, WordCamp Vienna the year before was 150 people, so it was a very, very much smaller event. But they now feel like, oh, we can do that, we're going to do that. And they sort of want to surf that wave. So it's to be confirmed, because it's going to be sometime next spring. But while before, the few people who were involved locally in WordCamp Europe were the same who had to sort of push things forward in the local WordCamp. Now it's been, for example, 3 monthly meetups I go where I'm basically just an attendee. And the local team has taken over. They are preparing the presentation. They're doing everything. So I think it gives sort of an idea it's possible. Some people fear that they won't be able to make it. And suddenly they see all these things and all these volunteers and all these people, and they're like, oh, we can make it.
No, and that's amazing, man. You got to think that there's some kind of confidence boost just as you're not alone. I mean, we sit on the computer, we talk to people like this, but 2,000 people in a room like that, and the vibes that you have, you're not alone. You kind of you feel the confidence level of like I'm part of something that's big, and that's not just from how big of how many WordPress downloads there are. It's like you're sitting in a room with 2,000 people physically. That's amazing, right? So I can see totally that would benefit local community in an amazing way.
It's the same feeling that I was talking about in the beginning. You go to this camp, it's happening in your home city, and you're thinking, I want to be a part of this. I want to do things like this. And it starts with your local WordCamp. It starts with just helping out your local team. Cool. It doesn't have to be a very local event anymore. You can make a small global event too. You can try and bring people from the outside as well. But it's very inspiring for local people to meet people from the broader community. I think it's one of the great things that hosting WordCamp Europe gives you as a host city.
No, I'm again. It's exciting for me to personally even have been involved a little bit in this. Having started the first WordCamp in Norway, and there's a bunch of Norwegians Norway is a relatively small place, and there's a bunch of Norwegians going to these WordCamps and all over the place, and everyone's fired up about it. So I love it. It's amazing, and I think that it is just the beginning, and you guys are doing a fantastic job. Not only you guys, but just even Paolo, the volunteer team that I was on with in Sofia. I know that it's that was probably smaller than what it was the following year and this year, but amazing people. Like this is a fantastic group of amazing people that are willing to do anything. Like it's and I'm sure you're like you see it way more than I did it just at the surface. All the stuff that goes on, and that's why I really love this. I really love what I do and why I do stuff like WordSesh and go to these WordCamps and volunteer. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I mean, I'm very glad you love it, and we would love to see you come back. By the way, you know that the team this year of organizers includes a lot of people who have been volunteers in the past, and they love that as volunteers, and they came back now as organizers. I think it's important to understand that WordCamp Europe is open to everyone. So there's, as I was saying, there's a global team that evolves and remain. The core of the team sort of is kept from year to the next year. But the reality is that the team this year is 52 people. The organizing team, not the volunteer team. We went from 40 people in the volunteer team in Leiden to 52 in the organizing team in this year. There's it's really the door opens for anybody who wants to participate and help, and loves WordCamps and the WordCamp Europe. So keep that in mind when the volunteer applications for WordCamp Europe 2017 will open in September, and then there's going to be a team in 2018 doing organizer application, I hope, but that's a little further in the future. So. But that's what we did this year. We did organizer application because so sorry if I can just say this if we have 30 seconds. One thing that we realized is that for a lot of people who participated as volunteers and enjoyed the event, it was a little hard to go to the next step and become an organizer, because unless you had a very strong personal relationship with some of the organizers, you didn't really know how to do it. Which is why this year we did a open call to organizers, where of course one of the requirements was to have participated before either as volunteer or organizer, but that opened the pool. And so we have a lot of people who were volunteers and now organizers, and I hope this is going to continue, because the pool of organizers has to have fresh blood every year. It's a lot of work. It's a big commitment, and it's not one that everybody can do for several years in a row. So
awesome. I hate to cut this short. I know we could probably talk about this for a long time. I would just want to give you guys a quick second, or not even that. Maybe we can just do after this. But let's just make sure to get some links in here. If you guys have any information, just Petya or Paolo, just post some links in here. I can tweet them out. Where people can go to find out more information about WordCamp in Paris and how they can help out, and we can point everyone there. Thank you so much for this. I think for me at least, it was a great way to catch up and talk with you guys. I love this, to see how how WordCamp Europe's going. I missed it. I feel bummed that I'm giving you excuses about kids and there's yes. So I'm out of excuses. But it's amazing what you guys are doing. Keep up the good work. I think everyone is really proud to be a part of this, and excited to see how this grows.
Thanks, Scott. Means a lot.
thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.